ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We are reading from the book Meditation and Spiritual Life by Swami Yatiswarananda. We are commencing chapter 20, Concentration and Meditation. First section, all concentration is not meditation. It is important to know the difference between ordinary concentration and meditation. By the word meditation, we mean dhyana or contemplation. It is not just ordinary concentration. It is a special type of concentration. In the first place, meditation is a fully conscious process, an exercise of the will. Secondly, meditation means concentration on a spiritual idea, which presupposes that the aspirant is capable of rising above worldly ideas. And finally, meditation is done usually at a particular center of consciousness. It is clear that true meditation is a fairly advanced state attained after long practice. It is the result of long years of discipline. What is ordinarily known as meditation does not deserve the name. The mind is upset by various evil thoughts and tendencies, and worldly matters turn the mind away from the contemplation of God. To attempt again, time and again, to draw the mind inward and fix it on God is the case with the majority of spiritual aspirants. Such a state is usually styled meditation. Really, it is pratyahara, withdrawing the outgoing mind. To keep the mind in the contemplation of the same thought for a short space of time is the next stage called dharana. When the outgoing tendencies are controlled and the mind flows continuously as a current in the contemplation of God, it is real meditation or dhyana. The concentration of a worldly mind on its gross material gain, profit and enjoyment, the concentration of a scientist on his experiments, as for instance on the structure of an atom or the constitution of a plant, the concentration of a psychologist on the movements and laws of thoughts, the concentration of a yogi on the analysis of the ego and the non-ego. All these are but different forms of concentration, judged from the objective point of view. But considered from the subjective point of view, their contents differ very widely, and they lead to altogether different experiences and results. The concentration of a spiritual aspirant, whatever the path he follows, is alone called dhyana or meditation or contemplation. The yogic seeker after truth, having no faith in God as ordinarily understood, may begin with meditation on gross elements associated with time and space, and then take up the elements beyond the limitations of time and space. He may next take up the subtle elements as the objects of his concentration and meditation, at first within time and space, and later on beyond their limits. Proceeding further, he must first make the mind of the inner organ, and afterwards the ego itself, the object of his concentration and meditation. And knowing the true nature of these objects, he ceases to identify himself with these limiting adjuncts, and having come nearer to his true self, he enjoys a wonderful state of bliss and illumination. The Vedantic aspirant who believes in the existence of the divine may at the beginning meditate on the physical form and image of or a picture of some holy personality or a symbolic representation of the divine, first associated with time and space, and then without these limitations. cosmic, and thereby succeed in purifying and expanding his impure, limited consciousness, come in touch with the infinite being within himself, and even proceed to the highest divine realization, in which the meditator, like a salt doll coming into contact with the ocean, gets merged with the absolute divine principle. Thus, beginning with different forms of concentration and meditation associated with individual consciousness, he may reach the highest super consciousness, the absolute reality, the one undivided principle, in which all subject-object relationship, nay, all relativity, is completely transcended. Concentration by itself may not have any spiritual value. As has already been said, it may even be dangerous if the person who practices it has not already attained a certain amount of mental purification and does not continue the process of sublimation at the same time. Concentration and meditation become spiritually effective to the extent the mind is purified of its dross, of all the dirt, bad impressions and tendencies that have been allowed to accumulate through successive evil thoughts and actions. With the attainment of great dispassion and purity alone can the aspirant take up successfully the higher forms of concentration and meditation, ultimately leading to the highest divine experience and freedom. Every average person has the capacity to practice concentration, although it is usually directed towards persons or objects of gain and enjoyment presented to him by the world. In order to follow the spiritual life, no new faculties need be created all of a sudden. The old capacities and tendencies are to be given a Godward turn without diminishing their intensity. And then the worldly man is transformed into a spiritual man. So the true devotee prays, Lord, may I think of Thee with that strong love which the ignorant cherish for the things of the world, and may that love never cease to abide in my heart. So this is from the Vishnu Purana 1.20.17. Ya pratira vivekanam vishayeshvana payini tvam anu smarata same hridayan ma pasarpatu. Ya pratira vivekanam vishayeshvana payini tvam smaruta same hridayan ma pasarpatu. Need for discipline. Our mind is always out to deceive us and play tricks on us. Therefore, we need a strict daily discipline in everything we do. How to get the necessary mental training? That is the main problem in meditative life. Different thoughts constantly keep cropping up in our minds. When we wish to make the mind calm, the mind becomes most disturbed. It revolts the very moment we try to concentrate. It suddenly takes the form of a mighty ocean in which we are in danger of being drowned. The whole surface of the mind is disturbed by strong thought waves, and the more we try to calm it, the stronger these become. So meditation makes us very tired in the beginning instead of soothing us and bringing us light as it should. As in the case of a horse trainer who has to take great trouble to break the horse, we shall have to follow a certain definite system of discipline with great doggedness and tenacity in order to quote-unquote break the mind. In spiritual discipline, there must be great definiteness regarding everything. It won't do for us to put two legs in two different boats. We must learn to follow one course definitely, step by step, without vacillating if we wish to reach the goal one day. The cravings of the flesh, our desires, usually stand in the way of real religion. The sham thing you ordinarily see in life, going to places of worship and hearing religious instruction and then doing just as one pleases is not true religion. This kind of thing may have proved highly profitable for the church, but it is not following Christ's teachings. Proper discipline is essential for all forms of spiritual practice, and without spiritual practice, there can never be anything like true religion. The early Christians knew this perfectly well. So did many of the great mystics of the Middle Ages. But now the whole tradition seems to be lost in the West, and that is why the West is sinking to the level of the brute. As has been mentioned before, the mind is very much like an unruly horse which has to be broken. When we want to ride it, the horse acts in two ways. It either becomes very much restive or simply lies down and refuses to move. It does not wish to be steady. In order to break this unruly horse of our mind, a certain amount of ethical culture is necessary. So long as the thought of sex and money is allowed to dominate it, it cannot be broken. Need for purification of mind. If you attempt meditation without having attained purity of mind, you are likely to concentrate more and more on the impurities of the mind than on God. The higher centers must open in order to enable the aspirant to dwell on higher thoughts for long. Here comes the importance of prayer and doing good work. The novice should never be allowed to follow the path of exclusive meditation. In our monastic order, we never allow this. So long as you are not a perfect master of your thoughts, too much meditation is dangerous for you in the early period of your spiritual life. When you sit alone and try to quieten the mind, forbidden, impure thoughts begin to rise in your mind and create confusion. These may even overpower you. It is better to spend only short periods in meditation in the early stages. The rest of the time must be usefully spent in work, service, or studies. This was what Christian monasticism learned from the lives of Christian ascetics of the early centuries. Since then, the Catholic Church has wisely enforced a combination of useful work along with contemplation. Without attaining a certain amount of sublimation and purification of the feelings and desires, concentration becomes very dangerous in the case of persons who have not prepared themselves properly for the higher life. It may lead to very bad effects. In a way, we all make the mind concentrated, but then we do not know how to manipulate it. This concentrated mind will run after sensual enjoyments and all kinds of worldly distractions and objects with a greater intensity for having become concentrated. So, if we do not know how to handle the mind in the right way, it may lead us astray. It is far better not to have concentration if one does not attain sublimation and purification at the same time. Therefore, the necessity of purity, non-injury, truthfulness, continence, etc. in thought, word and deed has to be stressed very much. Without sublimation of all our desires and feelings, we cannot progress in the spiritual path. It is only after we have followed a strict code of ethics and morals that we should attempt concentration and meditation. The concentrated mind, if it is not purified, becomes a veritable demon and creates no end of troubles for the spiritual aspirant. Physical as well as mental purity is absolutely necessary. Sometimes we make the mistake of stressing only physical purity because it is so much more difficult to achieve true mental purity. There are many who satisfy themselves by taking baths and who do not trouble themselves to have a pure mind. It is, however, impossible to concentrate a dirty mind on higher things. As long as there is the impure thought of woman in a man or of man in a woman, real higher concentration is out of the question for him or her. There may not be any gross physical relations, but it is sex all the same. And as long as there is any form of sex, purity has not been achieved, and without purity, higher spiritual life remains very far off. Posture. The next point is steady posture, asana, usually a sitting posture. Patanjali prescribes any posture that is steady and pleasant. So this was in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra 2.46. And I think it was referenced earlier in the book. Yes, 2.46. Sthira Sukhasanam. Sthira Sukhasanam. Sthira, which is steady, and Sukha, which is at ease. Sthira Sukhasanam. Squatting, no doubt, is very helpful because the weight of the body is perfectly balanced in that posture. But it must be easy. Otherwise, it will disturb the mind of the person trying to attempt spiritual practice. For Indians, it is natural, but for many Western people, it may necessitate quite a lot of practice, and some may not be able to do it at all. Anyway, for those who can, squatting is the best posture for spiritual practice. By squatting here, I believe he means the cross-legged sitting posture. Next section, rhythmic breathing. There are some people who find rhythmic breathing very helpful. Mind and breath are always interrelated and always act on each other. While doing pranayama, the proportion of inhalation, retention, and exhalation of breath should be 1:4:2. So inhalation for 1 breath, retention for 4 instants, and then exhalation for 2 instants. So 1:4:2. But it's not advisable to practice pranayama in the case of people who are too busy or immoderate. But just simple regulated breathing is good for all. However, mere retention of air is not enough. If it were so, a football bladder would be the greatest of all the yogis of the world. Along with rhythmic breathing, we must think intensely of purity. Everything is pure. I myself am pure. I am the embodiment of purity. Give such strong suggestions to your mind. Feel that with every breath, your body and mind are becoming purer and purer. Inhale purity. Exhale purity. Fill yourself with purity. Inhale calmness. Exhale calmness. Fill yourself with calmness. Or inhale peace. Exhale all mental disturbance. Inhale dispassion and renunciation. Exhale that all that is impure in your body and mind. Inhale strength. Exhale all weakness and fear. Go on giving these intense suggestions to your mind again and again before coming to real meditation. Content of meditation. Meditation should not be focused on the void. The beginner should not try to create a void in him. If he does it, either he may doze off or the void gets filled with impure thoughts. Meditation must have some definite positive spiritual content. Those who find meditation on the formless too abstract should center their feelings on some holy form. This is very effective in 2 ways. It leads one away from one's ego and sublimates one's feelings. If ever the picture of any person you used to love or hate troubles you, set up vividly the holy form you have chosen as your ideal. Ishtam against that. Your feeling for the Ishtam should be pitched against the feeling you have for the person whose memory is now troubling you. Worldly pictures and feelings must be counteracted with pictures of and feelings for the divine. Those who can do this progress quickly in spiritual life without much trouble. He who feels intense love and attraction for his Ishtadevata will find meditation easy. Without ethical culture, we can never come in close touch with the divine. If, after creating a perfect void within, we are able to have the right thought, well and good. Then this kind of practice will be very useful. But it is very dangerous for a beginner because he does not succeed in having the right thought after creating the void, but just falls asleep or is dominated by his subconscious mind. In the case of a beginner, there is always the great danger of his mind falling below the threshold of consciousness. Many people want to begin spiritual life from the topmost rung of the ladder, but that cannot be done. There are no long jumps in spiritual life. Neither can anything be achieved without first finding out where one really stands. High philosophical flights and wonderful metaphysical dreams do not mean realization. and by themselves they never lead to realization, but only to abstract and superfine speculations that have no connection at all with real or practical life. They do not change in any way the life of the person who indulges in them. We should know where we stand and then proceed from there. We must begin as beginners and go on step by step. As an ideal, monism may be alright for us, but when we come down to the practical aspects, we are dualists and shall remain dualists for a long time to come. I am always amused when I hear somebody talking in high terms about the absolute, the principle, etc., because in most of these cases, all these are nothing but empty speculations and frothy words. Those do not even show that a particular person is fit for the monastic path. Nobody who stands in dualism, in whatever way this may be, is a monist, whether monism appeals to him or not. Very often the mind of the modern man revolts against the idea of a rigid, formal meditation. He says, why should we busy ourselves with that? Haven't we enough drudgery in the world? So why should we follow practices which do not appeal to us? We want the absolute. So what is the use of japa, divine attributes or divine forms? Let us reach the absolute. Let us worship the divine, quote, in spirit and in truth, unquote. All this, no doubt, sounds very grand and highly spiritual. But as soon as we come down to actual life, we find that this kind of thinking does not produce anything at all. Mostly such people are confirmed dualists as far as their own actions in daily life go. To worship God, quote, in spirit and in truth, unquote, is all right as an ideal. But how many people really do it? That is the point. For most people, it means just hazy feeling and hazy thinking and acting in a way that has no connection at all with the spirit or truth. We'll stop here. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.